Segment 3, Gold and Black Live. Jim Everett. If this is what 61 years old looks like, you're good, man. This is what we always start by saying somebody's age when you may not have wanted to talk about that, but you are a good-looking 61 years old. Look like you could still play. Purdue fans know Jim Everett well because he played. Well, you were actually here 5 years and played in 5 different seasons. You were one of the first guys to do that. I know in '81, I think he just got a couple snaps, but big time starter in '84, '85, great part of the Purdue's turnaround in '84. And of course, a first round, 3rd overall pick in the 1986 NFL draft. We'll get into all those topics. Jim, tomorrow's game, Purdue Notre Dame, and your claim to fame among many things, but certainly one of the great turnarounds in the history of Purdue football. Few expectations. You walk into the Hoosier Dome, which doesn't even exist anymore, and you go in as a couple touchdown underdog and beat Notre Dame. And that was not a Purdue crowd. That was a Notre Dame crowd there because it was their home game. Looking back at that, it's only 40 years ago, but that has to be a special thing for you.
Alan, it's always good to be here on your show. What you do for the Gold and Black is tremendous, and the compliments you give out to us older guys is tremendous. I'll gobble those up.
Checks in the mail, baby. There you go.
you're the man. But playing Notre Dame is one of the highlights of any Purdue career, I think. I mean, I remember you mentioned it earlier. I was here for 5 years because they had a rule change. I played on some onside kicks my first
the
year.
Hands team?
Yeah. And they moved the percentage up, and Chuck Long, myself, and Jack Trudeau, those were quarterbacks from. We all got an extra year of eligibility because they moved the 20% up to 30%. So it was kind of a rule change. They didn't have NIL back then, but we were trying to go for that rule change, but
it didn't work. 40 years too late, my friend.
But playing against Notre Dame, and what Purdue for the last few years was not playing Notre Dame, I was like, what is going on? Because I live out in California now, and sure, the USC Notre Dame thing is kind of sexy, and that's kind of whatever. Yeah. But there was no better in-state rivalry. IU, whatever, they might want to say that, but there's way more P's on the chain. But anyways, Notre Dame was always the one you wanted to shoot at. And, the 5 years I was there, we won 3 of the 5. My last 2 when I was starting. But going down the Hoosier Dome, I couldn't believe, first of all, that they moved the game from a home game that was going to be up at Notre Dame. And then all of a sudden we get into this stadium, and I know it was 95% Notre Dame fans, but we still had some friendlies in Indy. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah.
But it felt like it was more of a neutral field than it was more of a home game for Notre Dame, and so I think that was a mistake for their part. But I get to go back with Steve Berline, who's a friend of mine, and that was rookie year. And I get to beat him up about that a little bit, but. I don't know. It was a maker day. I don't want to put this lightly. If I wouldn't have played very good that day, I probably wouldn't have had a career at quarterback. Leon wouldn't move me to tight end, honestly. And we had 2 blue chip quarterbacks behind me, so I knew I kind of had to perform. Not kind of perform, but I really needed to perform, and because I wasn't Leon's guy, and I was maybe Jim Young's guy, but not Leon's. But I became his guy after that victory.
You got to tell Berline about that pass to Don Baldwin, right? It was that won the game at the end. It was like a screen pass. Baldwin makes the interception, secures the win. And what a moment that was. You guys came out firing. And certainly in that game, you had good receivers. Jeff Price was a JUCO guy that certainly came up. I think had a touchdown reception. Bruce King in the running back, Steve Griffin. But what was it like? Notre Dame had a vaunted secondary. Tim Brown, that was his first game in a pro, and he fumbled, right? In his first time he'd ever touched the ball. But all those things crazy, but you still had to make plays down the stretch, and nobody gave you guys a chance. Talk about what Coach Leon Burnett brought to the table in terms of getting you guys motivated and making you believe in yourselves after your first 3 years. You had a losing season, and his job was on the line in '84.
He did. He did. And what he ended up doing is when he came in, I remember it was after Scott Campbell left, and it was it was a time where he went to 3-a-days. We used to have 2-a-days. He went to 3-a-days because he really wanted us to get our offense down. And one of the key things he did, it's not we weren't hitting all 3 practices. We did 2 of the 3, but it was we were dog tired just trying to get through it. But he got us to buy in, and he brought in a motivational speaker, not just for one time, but for a few weeks with us. Fred Mills worked with us.
Fred Mills, right?
You don't remember that name, but he really taught us the ability of first-person visualization, so you could. And we were getting to the point where we were getting so tired to camp that we just kind of believed everything Fred said, and we all did. We all bought in. And we were all the underdogs, but at the end of the thing is, why not us? Yeah. And that's where we kind of came from. Why not us? This is our opportunity. We get a shot. We get to do this. We get to line up. Yeah, all those guys over there might be 5-star guys, or they got the names on the thing, but why not us? And so we just bought into it. And I'd even look at a guy like Kevin Sumlin, who was a walk linebacker who ended up making an impact for our team. Why not Kevin Sumlin? And that was just an example of guys playing maybe a couple steps higher than maybe their ability, but that's just kind of what we did. Steve Griffin, I thought it was a cat's meow. He didn't make it in the pros, but as college, he was the best. He was the best X I could ever ask for.
Yeah, guys also like Bruce King, very, very reliable in the backfield. That tight end named Marty Scott made a lot of catches for you. Good receivers make quarterbacks look good, right? That helps. No question.
It does. It's a team thing. And on the flip side, when you're going against Notre Dame's, you're going against Michigan's, you're going against Ohio State, you gotta have the balls bounce a certain way, and we did, and we took advantage of situations where sometimes and other times those slip away. But if you got a team that can capitalize on other opponents' mistakes, you're so much better.
The only team in Purdue history to beat Notre Dame, Ohio State, and Michigan in the same year. You did that in '84. I do remember also, and it's fun. I'm sitting up in the press box as a student. No, I guess that's actually my first year in the SID office, but big plays at big times. Ohio State comes in, one of the, and there was the little riot that happened the night before around the triple X's. I'm sure you were safely in bed and sleeping and all that. I was too. But,
Alan, would you be surprised if I told you I was in the middle of that?
Yeah, no, I would be.
Dry guy was pretty good.
Ohio State was really loaded. Keith Byers, got to be one of the high. You didn't have to play defense, but I don't know how you tackle that guy at that level. Mike Tomczak at quarterback. You're down in that game starting the second half. And as I recall, first play was a first or second play from scrimmage. I think it was an 80-yard or 78-yard touchdown pass to Steve Griffin. But talk about that mentality of no one believed you could beat Ohio State either. In 84.
No, and Ohio State didn't think that we could beat them, and so they kind of disrespected us, and that's what when we saw in the first half, we saw that they were kind of getting into us, and so we came up with some audibles. It was a halftime adjustment, and we as soon as we saw it again, because they were going to change, it was very successful. And then we went to our black 85 or whatever, 87 or whatever it was, and then I think we got 2 of those audibles for touchdowns.
Yeah.
And so, if we look at it, they were like, hey, we're going to just will our way to this game. We're going to just blitz them. We're going to do that. This is a bunch of no names. We don't respect them. And so then when we gashed them for a couple, they were like, whoa. The next year we played them, they only rushed 3 guys and they put 8 back. They were like, no, we're not going to let that happen again. So, they learned. But it was one of those things that you're just kind of going through. And we were a team of they didn't know. Teams didn't know about us. They didn't know. They didn't. And I wouldn't say we snuck up on them, but we just brought them into our web, and they had to play on our level and go to theirs. But our defense was key with Byers. That was huge for our defense to hold him 20-some points, whatever they had. That was huge. And when offenses are scoring 40 points, it's tough to keep up like that all the time.
Yeah, Kevin Sumlin, but there was also a guy named Rod Woodson, number 26. Tell me where you were, if you remember, and then we're going to talk about things you didn't remember in the 85 game. But the 84 game, where were you against Ohio State when he had the pick six? And I just said Ross-Ade Stadium went up in flames. And all of a sudden, you guys are up 11 points, and holy cow, you're going to win this thing. What do you have a memory of that, where you were probably looking at him down the sideline, I'm guessing?
I just couldn't believe it at the time. I mean, it was just it gives me goosebumps right now thinking about it. I was on the sideline. We were talking about something, and all of a sudden, everyone's going crazy. Like, what happened? What happened? And then, Rod's in the end zone. So, and then later on in that game, they're trying to come down, and if they score, then they either tie or whatever, however it works out, or possibly win. And it's fourth down, and Mike Tomczak spikes the ball because he forgot what down it was. But then again, he's also a freshman. So I mean, that's when you start looking at guys, and we can talk about Card, or we can talk about guys, but when you've got freshman quarterbacks, you've got a big learning curve, and you really have to go through. I see the same thing in the NFL with Will Levis and different guys like that we can talk about. But young quarterbacks need to learn, and that's one of the things that that you have to kind of build into your program. And, our 84 year, we did have a Steve Berline, who was a freshman. We did have a Mike Tomczak, which was a freshman. And it really cost both those games.
Yeah. It's funny about that game because I think that your backup, Doug Downing's dad, might have been the guy. And these are all what stories are made of, and how much of them are true. But I do remember they were very slow to change this third down to the fourth down on the sideline. And Tomczak looks over and thinks it's third down, and it wasn't. Like you said, he spikes the ball, and the rest is history. So,
well, you got to know as a quarterback, you can't trust all the stuff.
No, you can't.
Those are the things you got to know, and that's inexcusable. If you played the position for any bit of time, but I felt for him. But at the end, it was like, well, we just stole this one. This was good. That was good.
Beating Bo Schembechler too, you guys, I think, had a 31-7 lead at the half. They hung on to beat them and get to a bowl game. Any memories of playing Michigan? Your return trip, your senior year wasn't so pleasant, but your junior year was a big win over Michigan, and a team that wasn't as good as Michigan had been in the past, but they went on and took on BYU, as I recall, in the Holiday Bowl that year. So then BYU almost beat them when BYU won the national championship. So talk about that.
So funny when I look at Bo Schembechler, I just got to mention this.
Yeah.
Doesn't Jim Harbaugh look like he's turning Schembechler? I mean, it's just like, I don't know what it is, but
he got away. He's in your neighborhood now. So
yeah, he is. He's at the house. He's at the SoFi house right down the road. But if he doesn't beat up his quarterbacks by pounding on their shoulder pads. But anyways, Bo Schembechler, much respect to him. We did have a 28-0 halftime lead. Everything we threw at Michigan the first half on that particular day, we caught. And Bo said he's never seen an offense click like that before, and rightfully so. I mean, it was just going. We ended up winning 31-28, I think. So
31-29, yep,
or 29. So we kicked the field goal, but they were a good team, and at 28-0, we're like, we got this, and but you can't sit on your laurels at all, but. Much respect to him. I know if we talk about the next year, I don't know if people realize that, but my senior year, when we went to Minnesota, I ended up hitting my elbow on the turf, and I had this scar right here.
Yeah.
Anyways, it turned into a staph infection.
Yes,
and I was in a hospital for weeks at a time, and I tried to play. Coming out of the hospital, I was in the hospital all week and trying to just do fluids and intravenous, whatever, just try to antibiotics. And I just didn't have the energy to play. It was the first game that I didn't throw for under 100 yards, and I can only last a quarter. So there was some things that go on in life, and that's why people look, hey, this team's going to be this team. But if you've got injuries that come upon you, it's really tough to predict where you're going to be. I mean, I look at the Rams offensive line for this year, and they got two or three of their starters already out, and Stafford's got to scramble for his life, and so you just never know. The injury bug can really affect teams, and that's something that I look at, especially if you're a bettor out there. You better understand those complexities.
Yeah, no doubt. That is all the things that we as observers sit and add up and say, oh, this is an absolute thing. You don't know. We knew, I can remember in 85, remember you up at, I think it may be up at Michigan Stadium, just having that big thing on your right elbow and not knowing full what the deal was because how much you had to go through to do that. Now, I want to take you back, though, to the 85 Notre Dame game. You had not funny at the time, but funny now because you guys really clicked on all cylinders to beat Notre Dame pretty soundly. But you said the second and third quarter, you might not even remember them. Tell us that story.
Oh, no.
that one in that game.
Oh, the first quarter of this game. I mean, it's people would say, "Hey, you remember this about the Notre Dame game? You remember this about that Notre Dame game?" And like the 85 is a total blank for me. So it's the first quarter. I'm going down, and I think I had a rushing touchdown in the first quarter. But at the very end, right before I get to the goal line, I kind of get wedged right between the ground and a couple helmets, and we all kind of make impact right there on the goal line. It was still a score. But man, I came back to the sideline, and thank God that we had a runner that would bring plays in.
Yeah.
Because, I was concussed, and I called it a migraine or called it whatever you might want to call it. But I don't remember the second and third quarter at all. And we were functioning and we were doing our stuff, and maybe that's when you know your job so well, you can do it mindlessly. Because that's what I was doing.
Yeah, when you think about that, and obviously playing 12 years in the league, does that still? I mean, and having those concussions, and you got banged around a lot in the league as well. In all your, I'm sure you have friends that have had to go through CT and other things, but give us that perspective of what that feels like, even at your age now. You're as sharp as a tack. I expect you to be for a long time, but is that a shadow that a lot of guys have to live with at this point?
What's your name again?
Yeah, Fred Mills.
Hey, Fred, I didn't know.
Yeah, there you go.
Alan, if you're asking the person that has been concussed, how do you feel? It's really a hard thing to put a finger on.
Sure.
I know that I got out of the NFL when I was 35 years old, and now guys are playing to 40. Got Tom Brady 45. But we couldn't do that with the rules we played under. They could take 2 steps, hitting your knees, hitting your head, hit whatever. I mean, they were trying to knock us out of the game so they could win. That was the name of the game. And then all of a sudden, quarterbacks started making 30, 40, 50 million a year, and the NFL got wise to the fact that, man, I don't think our fans want to see Mahomes sitting on the sideline with a concussion. So they put all these rules in to protect, and that was really Brady's era because they started in 97, but it was after 2000 that they put in the real meat of the rules. And I retired. I retired in 98, so I was like, dang, I missed that. But then again, there's a few things I missed. But anyway, I couldn't take any small hits anymore. I talked to Steve Young. I talked to Troy Aikman. And we all were kind of in that same boat, and you hear the comments about people getting punch drunk, and it's like, just take a little hit and you're automatically to that concussed spot again. So that took me a while to get off. There was some anxiety, some other issues to get through, but they've calmed down, so it's hopefully good from here on in. But you never know. I mean, you hear all these stories about other players, and I see other guys. I talk to other guys. I know the NFL has a lawsuit or a thing set up for people with head concussions, but honestly, a lot of guys don't get that money, and it's really, really tough for someone to qualify on something that's really, tough to quantify. Anyways, I know there's a lot of lip service to it, but I know some of my teammates that I've had in the past that do have still trouble, and they are not receiving anything from the NFL. Well, I don't mean to plug that in here on the Purdue thing, but I do love the rule changes. I think the NFL is in a good spot like that. They're trying to protect the receivers, the guys that are unprotected. I like the hip drop rule that people say that people's lower body. So I really think they're being proactive on trying to protect the guys, but it still is a physical sport.
Yeah. All right. If you were in Purdue's locker room on tomorrow morning or tomorrow, let's see, it's a 3:30 game Eastern. and you got a chance to address Ryan Walter's team, what do you tell them? And when you have that chance to play Notre Dame, what is your fire-up speech for Purdue in that locker room, in your view?
Well, Alan, as far as playing Notre Dame, that is kind of the pinnacle of Indiana sports, in my opinion. I'm in the Indiana Football Hall of Fame.
Hall of Fame, yes, you are.
And beating Notre Dame is part of that. Beating IU is part of that. Owning the state in football is part of that. So Ryan Walters, you guys need to own the state of Indiana. It helps recruiting. It helps, life in general. But beating Notre Dame is always something that Purdue has been good at, and I would continue. Yeah. And then my final thing I would probably bring up is, why not you?
Yeah.
Why not you? Give it your all. You're going to have some moments where things don't go your way, but just visualize yourself in the moment and taking care of your job, and then good things happen.
All right, last question for you. Just sitting in there, that feeling of being in Ross-Ade, your most memorable moments, just in terms of the crowd. Was it the '84 Ohio State game? Was it any other experiences? Was it senior day, your last game? What was probably your biggest takeaway from your time of being in Ross-Ade?
Man, there's just so many, a collection of good things. Of course, beating Ohio State at home, and everyone's coming in and taking the goalpost down, and everyone's on the field. It reminded me a lot of the other Ohio State game a few years back.
2018, very much, very similar.
Very similar. And it was the Michigans, beating IU, beating the Notre Dames of the world. All those, the victory things. Of course, you remember the times when we lost to Iowa by 3 points or something like that. And I say where we really should have beat those guys and gone on to the Rose Bowl, but. You have those thoughts, but I remember the good times. I remember my teammates. I remember going through the things that Rod Woodson was doing, the Chris Dishmans of the world, I said, Kevin Plumlin. And then, of course, some of the stuff we've done with, I'm still best friends with Bruce King, and we bring up a bunch of different things. So, and Jack Barry. So it's really a lifelong friendship. It's really a part of your life that. Will never really change. You got your besties, and Purdue's always has those good moments. I don't know if there's one particular great, fantastic moment, but I do know when we're playing against Ohio State and we did those audibles and they worked and it was gashed them. That was pretty damn nice.
I will say this: I didn't know any of you guys personally, but you guys were well behaved enough. That's right. So you guys had fun, right? Isn't that good? That's one of the best things you got going for you. But also that you had, this was a fun group. I think Leon Burnett and staff. I know they were tough on you at times, but you guys wanted to have some fun with doing this, and it seemed like there were some real personalities. Ray Wallace is another one of my favorite people, and
Rodney Carter
can't be any better than those guys.
Kind of took on the personality of Leon, and we all kind of bought into that because Leon was a grinder. I mean, he really was. He really wanted to get his junkyard defense going, and he really wanted to get up in here, and he really wanted to get up in our heads, which is kind of tough as a quarterback.
Yeah,
I think Coach Spoo and everything backed him off a little bit part, but we took on his personality, and Leon liked to have fun too. So that was the part that we could see the reward, we could see the carrot at the end, and it was fun watching Leon. And God rest his soul, it was fun watching Leon get his smile, I know he went through some tougher times later after we left, but it was really fun to see him be successful at that time.
All right, Jim, thanks so much for your time. I know you're not guaranteeing a victory tomorrow, but I know you'll be watching, and we look forward to when you get back to West Lafayette sooner than later. We appreciate your time and your great career at Purdue and in the NFL, and just the fact that you're a stand-up dude. You come back for, like I said, we were there when you put you in the Indiana Hall of Fame. Big deal. It's a big deal, and it's a big deal for the sports deal. So,
have a great luck tomorrow. Let's get the victory and go boys.
All right. Sounds good. Thanks so much. I want to thank Triple X, a place that probably Jim has been to a time or two in his life, and of course, State Farm agent Trent Johnson. We appreciate them. as well. And Madison Kopp, your help back in the back room at WLFI, we appreciate you too. So we'll see you next week prior to that game up in Corvallis, of all places. Purdue takes on Oregon State next week, and we'll have another show to boot and have some fun with that. Jim, thanks again. Have a great weekend, and we'll talk again soon on Golden Black Live.